Mic check. 1, 2. I think we are up and running and good to go. Just making sure everything in the audio is good. Fortunately, I don't have to really adjust much from the stream yesterday since I've got the same audio interface hooked up. And I think we are good to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the jam stream layout and we will go ahead and get started. All right. I think everything is loaded in. So we can go ahead and get started and not waste any time for today's Beatbox jam stream. So what's on the agenda today? I did want to talk through some things and go over some basic information before we get into the technique stuff proper. So maybe I'll just put a really simple beat in the background so it's not dead silence while I'm talking. How about there we go. That should do. I'll just delete this off once we actually start working on loop stuff. So what's on the plan for today's stream? Thought a little bit about some ideas to talk through and some stuff I wanted to cover. And it's not going to be a dramatic change in format. I have a couple things on the sound theory and status check I want to kind of walk through, kind of based on things I've been drilling recently. We will talk a bit about that. We will get to BGM probably in the latter half of the stream and do some brainstorming for BGM ideas. And maybe if we collectively come up with some ideas for some thematically relevant songs, we can potentially put something in place that's going to go into the upcoming BGM pack that's coming out next week. We're kicking around ideas for a final track of the set that I've done for the upcoming summer BGM pack. But if we have a bunch of good ideas, I wouldn't mind putting together one with the aid of chat, and that will be part of the track list for the release next week. Another thing I'm going to experiment with, we'll talk about a little bit later. I have to decide if I want to do it before or after the sound status check. We'll have to see. But there is something new I want to try, a new kind of sub-format for the jam streams. It took a little bit of configuring and messing around OBS to get it working, but it should be fun if everything is set up properly. So that being said, as usual on the jam streams, we usually start with some basic warm-ups and some simple freestyle drill type things just to get the blood flowing, get everything warmed up, and then we move into the actual discussion and stuff that I wanted to talk about for today. So I think we are done with this. I'll just turn that off for a moment. And this will also be my chance to keep checking sound and audio readout. I think everything is good. I'm not seeing anything peaking too bad for snares. Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, have to be a little bit careful with spit snares, not point directly at the mic. But other than that, we should be good. So I'm going to run through a couple basic things for practice, and then we will see where that leaves us. Hey, Iconic is here. What's up, Iconic? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing well on this Sunday afternoon. I don't know what day it is. It is extremely warm where I live right now. But other than that, I'm doing good. All right, so I went through a little bit of warm up. I was working on a couple things before the stream, so I'm not completely cold today, but one thing I wanted to make sure in warm up is my voice, because we're going to be talking a bit about basses today. And not necessarily talking about anything new as far as basses go, but maybe since it'll be easier to do on the front end to do the sound status check, let me update the caption real quick. Let me put sound discussion so we could talk about sound theory and some sound status check stuff overall. Hey, Med's here. Med says, I managed to join. Welcome to the jam stream, Med. I hope your day is going well. We were just getting started, so welcome to the jam stream. So occasionally, maybe every 2 or 3 streams we do here for Beatbox Jam stuff, I'll do what's called a sound status check. And that is just sort of my process for taking a look. Let me fix my camera real quick. Let's see me about there. Problem is I move around a little bit. So sometimes it zooms me in and out. But sound status checks is my way for kind of reporting in on the things I've been drilling and practicing, and kind of a way to gauge progression. Just like any other skill that you practice at and try and refining it better, you grind away at beatboxing, practicing and drilling different techniques and trying to refine stuff. And then every once in a while, you'll kind of level up. And it might not be a dramatic change in your overall beatboxing arsenal, but sometimes after you've been working on sounds and techniques for a while, you'll find that they just level up to a noticeably different type of, it's hard to describe, I want to say complexity, but sometimes you'll just be able to tell when the sound gets better. And what I've always told people who were interested in learning about beatboxing, if you practice enough, you will see that progression over time. In the beginning, when you're new, and you're just practicing, getting started, learning techniques, you're going to see that progression much faster as you just get better at the basics and learning sounds. You'll see them improve. After you've been doing it for a while, the level up curve starts to flatten a little bit, and you don't see those changes as frequently. But what I've found is, as you've been doing it for longer, instead you'll see the change you'll see it less frequently, but it'll be a bit more noticeable, if that makes sense. And I've never talked to other people in the scene to see if they experience the same thing. But what I mean by that is in the beginning, when you have kind of rapid progression as you learn things, and then it flattens out and becomes less common later, you see incremental changes over time in the beginning, and you see it less frequently later, but it's more noticeable later. It's a little bit hard to describe. I see Med has redeemed a hydrate. Very good. And Med says, I'll be back later today. See Iconic and Haraku. All right, Med. Thanks for popping in to say hi. We'll be at this for kind of a while today. I have a kind of flexible schedule. So the hope is to spend a bunch of time talking about beatboxing stuff and technique, and then devote a lot of time to the BGM stuff. So we should have a decent amount of content here, and you can always check out the archives later to see what we covered. So going back to the idea of leveling up and progression in sounds. So how do I want that to apply to what I'm talking about today for me? So I think best way to talk about that is to move on to basses. And I've talked about it before on stream here when it comes to the different techniques. And my favorite type of bass that I've kind of managed to single out is vibration bass. And it's a pretty difficult one to do in the beginning because it is very similar to throat bass. And we've talked a little bit about the mechanics. I can recap it a bit here too. But if we talk about the sung or throat basses that are outwards, regular throat bass is done higher up in the throat and it's a little bit tighter as you're forcing sound and air to go through your vocal cords. And that's the and that technique is done, I've kind of broke it down before, but the sound gives you that kind of distorted bass melodic sound that's really versatile when putting into beats. It's usually one of the first ones people learn. The vibration bass is a sort of sub-variant of throat bass, but it's done with a slightly different technique. And the reason why I tend to recap it is because it's a hard one to learn. This one took me a while to get as well. But if you think of the throat bass being higher up in the vocal cords, not literally at the top of your throat, but higher up in your vocal cords, as you lower the pitch of throat bass by kind of loosening your vocal cords and dropping down a register, just like you would sing. You know, you sing a high note, you kind of open your throat, drop things down for a low note. Same thing works in the same way for throat bass, but the technique changes a little bit in the lower register for a lot of people. I don't know anyone who doesn't do it this way, just I haven't talked to a ton of people in the scene. But if we were to illustrate, the range for kind of the note tolerance on throat bass, if we were to go right about there, I don't know what note that is because I don't know notation. Right about there is kind of the threshold for throat bass for me. And in order to drop lower, I have to transition to vibration bass, which gives me access to the much lower register of this particular type of vocal bass. And the way you do it is by dropping the portion of your vocal cords and opening them up instead of tightening them like you would for the higher sounds, like the it's much tighter. If you're dropping it lower to get the lower notes and you open your vocal cords and let them resonate, what happens for vibration bass is it goes from to and it's a little bit subtle as far as the sound, but you'll start to hear that rattling reverberation a lot more in those lower notes. And that's because you're opening up your vocal cords and letting everything resonate. And one of the things that's kind of key for me when I was learning, or was key for me when I was learning this, is learning where to direct the sound as it's coming from your throat. And that's going to sound really strange, and I don't think I've talked a lot about this on these streams. But if we take the sound for vibration bass that I'm doing right here, though, it's coming out of my mouth and my lips are slightly open to give it that kind of filtered distortion on it. It sounds kind of like it's vibrating on the end in addition to just the sound and pitch is vibrating. If I completely close my mouth and direct the sound out of my nose like a hum but using vibration bass, it changes the way the sound works. It still comes out the same way, but the sound itself is different. So if you compare, to, and the interesting thing that I've learned as I've been practicing this is you get the resonation and rattling a lot more when you're directing it out of your nose. I don't know if it's because of the way the sinuses kind of reverberate with the way you direct the sound, and it's not necessarily super pronounced. You're not going to see a night and day difference, but it is different in the way the sound hits. And so if we were to do two really simple beats, I can kind of demonstrate the difference, and I'll try and accentuate it a little more just to demonstrate for purposes here. So if we're doing a vibration bass at that same note, and we'll mix up with some PF snares, and we're doing something like simple beat with PF snares and vibration bass. That's the way it sort of comes across on the mic. But if I close my mouth and do the same thing, it's going to sound a little bit different. So let me try and get right around the same note range. So for you to go, it's a little bit subtle and kind of hard to hear unless you listen real closely, but the resonation is more pronounced. I could feel it. It feels differently when my mouth is completely closed. And so the kind of fun thing about messing around at vibration bass is you can really vary how the sound is coming out just by mouth position, and then just pushing it really hard from your vocal cords to either go lower or to have more of a heavier sound. And it's been really fun experimenting with that, and that's part of the level up thing I was talking about before. I feel like my ability to control that type of sound and that type of bass in order to make it do what I want has been getting much better. Problem is, it does put strain on your vocal cords and your throat. So my throat has actually been kind of sore over the last few days just because I've been practicing a lot in drills and just messing around with different patterns and semi-routines to try and apply the vibration bass and mess around with it. But it's definitely evolving a bit. If I were to compare it to a month ago, and I consider it one of my most consistent basses, I feel like I have a lot more control over it now, and it's just going to continue to get better as I keep practicing. So the idea of kind of stasis when it comes to beatbox sounds is really not accurate. As long as you're practicing and experimenting around with techniques, you'll continue to see progress. And some will progress more than others. Vibration bass is such a weird technique and relies so much on the conditioning of your vocal cords and your throat that I don't think there's much of a ceiling for how much the sound can improve. Other ones, kind of like vocal chest bass, those don't put as much stress on different parts of the anatomy, so it's really more of manipulating the sound and kind of fine-tuning how you want it to sound when it comes out. I don't think there's a night and day difference between now and maybe 4 months ago when it comes to the vocalized chest bass. I think my ability to kind of move the notes around is getting better with vocalized chest because it's very similar in position to vibration. In fact, if I'm not careful, sometimes I kind of flip back and forth because they're right around the same throat position, but you're not putting stress on your vocal cords with vocalized chest. That's the whole point. You're using the low rumble from the heavy sigh we talked about before, and you're combining that with just a hummed note with no distortion. So it would be like a plus to get whoa, 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 whoa. And again, very similar in position. And as soon as it starts to rattle, that's usually my key that I'm dipping into vibration bass, because vocalized chest should be very kind of round and mellow in its sound. So you get stuff like versus a vibration bass would be and you can hear that rattle. It's same note, done very similar position, but the sound is different. One is very sharp and rattling, the other is more smooth and kind of more melodic. And having good command over those, again, is just practice over time. It's pretty difficult, but the more you do it, the kind of more familiar, and you'll get muscle memory, if that makes sense for your throat. You get muscle memory for where things lie when you're trying to get the sounds to come out, and that makes it easier to do on demand. And thus you can, transition between different sounds. You could do something like a throat bass to vibration to vocalized chest, something like and that is really good practice to do, just so you're constantly moving between different techniques, and then it gives you tools for creating routines and patterns and whatnot, so you're not just kind of stuck between single techniques, only using this bass technique or type in this pattern or routine, and doing them on their own. Instead, you can kind of jump between the two, and the more you practice, the better you get at doing that. And also, in line with just the drilling and practicing and getting control over the techniques, you get conditioning just like you would do if you were exercising. If you're lifting weights or doing cardio, the more you do it, the more your body gets conditioned into that type of exertion, and the more endurance you build. So hopefully, and I've sort of seen this to some extent, I don't drill every day the same way, but my ability to practice and do these different, sung basses, the endurance is going up as my throat gets used to the strain and whatnot, and I'm not losing my voice. In fact, I haven't lost my voice practicing beatbox technique in probably 2 years. And that's practice as well. In the beginning, even if you're just learning throat bass, and every day you're practicing for however long, just doing whether it's notes, putting it into a beat or whatever, that's going to kill your voice. And it's going to make your throat sore and tired. But like we always say, rest, take a break, work on something else. As soon as you start to feel pain in any part of your beatboxing anatomy, stop, rest, drink water, let everything recover, and then pick up the next day, and you should be perfectly fine. And over time, as you do that, you build up that endurance. Things like the vocal cords, they get tougher, as it were, and then your ability to do that for longer goes up as well. And next thing you know, you have no real pain or exhaustion on your voice from doing stuff like that. It's the same thing for non-bass type techniques too. We talk about lip rolls every once in a while, things like your dry lip roll, or the inward lip roll, your ability to do those is going to be somewhat limited by your muscle conditioning, because they're very unusual types of exertion. Nobody in their day-to-day life, if they're not a beatboxer, walks around just going no one does that. So when you're sitting there trying to learn the technique, or you've just learned how to do a regular lip roll and you're practicing it, it's going to hurt the side of your face, because the lips muscles are not used to doing that type of technique. But the more you practice it, the more endurance you get, and then next thing you know, you're sitting there doing that for long stretches of time. You have to be a little bit careful because of the pressure it puts on your jaw, but I think you'd have to be doing it for hours and hours on end for that to really impact, your face muscles. But practice and endurance, like any other skill, is really important, and all of the known beatbox teachers kind of stress that to their students. They say, look, Rome wasn't built in a day, as it were. You're going to need to practice, get conditioning, get used to all the different techniques, in addition to just learning how they work. And if you keep at it over time, you'll see improvement. And that is pretty satisfying, even if you don't see it very frequently. Like, I don't really keep tabs about when I quote unquote level up, because I'm leveling different things at different times. I might be working on basses and then see improvement for one type of bass, and then see an improvement on another one 2 months later. It's just constantly in flux. But it is rewarding to see that payoff as you just get better. And I'm not a pro. I've got a lot to learn when it comes to beatboxing still. But I did want to sort of kind of zero in on the idea of leveling up and the results of practice. And then I guess to kind of wrap up the topic, the reason why I even brought it up is because the vibration bass is probably going to be the one I work on the most, in addition to inward bass, which is down the road. Maybe I'll do like a follower special for that one. Maybe like 100 followers will devote part of a jam stream specifically to inward bass, because that one is very different. It's very different from the others. I still suck at it, but to give you folks just sort of an update, I have learned the technique. I learned it probably 4 months ago. I've just been practicing it and getting better. But I want to feel like I know this technique really well and can do it really consistently before I speak on it and sort of teach you folks about what I learned and talk about it. Because if I were to bust it out now, it'd be functional, but it wouldn't really illustrate how it works too well. So that is, in the near future, something we'll talk about. But to sort of wrap up the discussion on sound status checks, again, I'm kind of pleased with the little bit of progression I've been seeing on vibration bass. Kind of my immediate end goal in the short term is to kind of refine it so that it sounds similar to a pretty well-known beatboxer in the scene, this kid. And I'm saying he's a kid because he's probably half my age at his oldest. He's this kid from South Africa named Remix. And he's been beatboxing for, I think, few years maybe. And he's one of the best in the world. He's an incredibly skilled and incredibly adept person when it comes to beatboxing. If I ever do another media share stream, I'll have to show off some of his stuff, because he does have a channel on YouTube. I don't know how often he streams, but he has content there, and he's been a competitor in a lot of the online events. I know he's won a few. He's won local championships in South Africa, I believe, and he's competed online with like the big names, the big people. And his command over technique is crazy. He knows how to do so many different things very well. But his vibration bass is probably one of the best I know of the scene. There's a lot of people who do it really well, but his is crazy. It sounds like there is a filter or some sort of processing effect on his bass when he does it, but there isn't. It's just that he's refined it that well. And I think it has something to do a little bit with how he filters the sound through his lips, because he's not doing vibration bass open mouth completely. It's kind of similar to the way I do mine. It's just his sounds way, 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 way better. But I think he's using kind of like a semi-mouth open or lips open filter. But the resonation and the crazy effect isn't from that. It's from just how it's coming from his voice. And it's crazy. That's kind of my goal, to be able to do that level of vibration bass. But again, I do think it's in progress and slowly moving towards where I want it to be. And when we get to the sort of next thing I want to cover is kind of an experiment for today's stream. You probably hear me mixing up a lot of vibration bass into the patterns and stuff that I do, just because it's the one I want to drill the hardest. And learning how to slot that into different things is really important, especially if you're doing things like moving between notes, really high notes, really low notes, and moving around all over the place. And that's part of the practice. We will be talking about technicality probably in a future jam stream. There's not a lot to report at this point. I'm still working on doing TKKs and getting better with those and stringing it together with the other technical sounds that I know. But technicality is moving as well. It's progressing slowly and still not where I want it, but I think, it's over the last year, if I were to think back, it's definitely improved a bit for that one sound set that, again, I was trying to learn since I didn't do it from the beginning. But it's getting better, and hopefully next time we cover technicality, I can explain sort of what I've learned and the different things I'm experimenting with that sound set, because it's another thing I've been drilling. And that one's a lot easier to drill than bass stuff, because it's just sounds and not really stressful on mouth anatomy. It can make your tongue muscles kind of sore after a while, but not like your voice. Not like practicing the song basses. So you can expect to get an update in the future about technicality and doing sort of a sound check type thing. So I guess the next thing I want to do, and this will be sort of an experiment today. Again, I had to do some tinkering with OBS to get this enabled, but I want to try the idea of instituting a challenge format to these jam streams. It's not really the point and intention of doing this, but it's twofold. So what I've done, let me turn this on, and then I need to go and click this in a different place. I have set what I'm calling the challenge timer, and let me move that down a little bit. And we're going to change our caption. Freestyle practice. And that's fine. It's not exactly in line, but that's fine. It'll be right above my head. So we talk a little bit about the idea of, let me find this here. Make sure it works. Yes. We talk a little bit about building a repertoire, an arsenal of tools for beatboxing. And then last jam stream, I believe, we talked a bit about pattern construction, routine construction, and being able to put all the pieces together when it comes to creating music. The best way to put it is creating music. Whether you are the type of person who wants to perform, you're the type of person who wants to compete, or the type of person who just wants to get better at beatboxing as a hobby, at some point you're going to have to show somebody what you do. And maybe not. It's possible that you just beatbox on your own for yourself and learn and never show anybody. I think that's kind of unusual, but if someone wanted to do that, I wouldn't fault them. But chances are, at some point, whether through you or through someone else, someone is going to find out that you beatbox, and they're going to want to see what you can do. Now, you could fairly say, well, I'm just a hobbyist. I don't really want to show off anything in front of people. You could do that. That's perfectly fine. But chances are, for most people, you're going to want to show something to someone. And the whole point of the discussion I'm talking about here is being able to freestyle and think off the top of your head, using all the tools you've learned and have been trying to master, is a really important skill and not one that everyone is born with. In fact, most people probably aren't born with the ability to just put things together on the fly. Maybe some people can think that quickly. I can't. But the whole idea of taking your tool set and now using it in practice is pretty important to work on. In addition to learning sounds, in addition to mastering sounds and improving and leveling up, you also need to be able to apply them. And so what I want to do, maybe not every stream, unless people really like this and want to see me do it more often, I am going to do what I'm calling freestyle challenge practice. And what this is you can see the timer on screen there. I'm going to start the timer and I'm going to just go straight into freestyle stuff. And the whole point of the challenge is to see how long I can keep freestyling and coming up with different beats and not, repeating the same thing over and over again before I either physically have to stop and take a break, or I run out of ideas and have to stop. And I'll probably need to use the archive footage for this in the future so I can keep track. But the point is to sort of track progress over time. Like, let's say we do this now and I run out of ideas after 5 minutes. Okay, so for today, we know that the benchmark has been set at 5 minutes. Next time we do one of these on stream, or even if we do another one on the same stream, it's fine. The time to beat for freestyle practice and coming up with ideas would be 5 minutes. And tracking that over a period of time, hopefully that number continues to go up. And then the goal is to one day get to 30 minutes or something like that of being able to freestyle, put ideas together, and bust stuff out for running out of ideas or physical endurance. And that would force me to continue to think quickly and kind of ahead and build that skill of freestyle practice. Because for me personally, if like nobody in my day-to-day life ever asked me to beatbox, it's just never anything that intersects with my life outside content creation. Some people I know that I can do it, but I don't see those people often. But in the event someone ever does say, "Hey Raku, I heard you can beatbox. Show my friend here what you can do." I want to be able to bust something out and not have to say, "Okay, let me think for 5 minutes and put together a routine." Like, no one wants to see that. You got to be able to kind of think on your feet. And so this exercise is meant to challenge that level of skill and force me to get better. So what I will do, and I will keep an eye on chat too. This might be one of the few times where I'm not responding directly to chat immediately, but once we eventually hit the end of the freestyle session, I can go back and whatnot. So for people who might be joining after I start the timer, and I think Iconic is still here. You're probably the only one hearing this at the moment. But if people jump on while I'm doing this and they start saying hi or what's up and I don't respond because I'm just plowing through stuff, that will be why. And I'm not making like Iconic here the arbiter of explaining to people what I'm doing. But if people start going, "Hey, what's he doing and why isn't he responding?" That's why. Because if I stop, that ends the challenge period. So we'll see what happens. I think this could be fun. And hopefully it leads to some improvement. The real key is going to be whether or not I need to stop and drink water. I will sort of play that by ear as far as whether or not that's going to be a complete end of the whole thing, because my voice will eventually get so tired that I have to drink water. But if I switch to different things that don't rely on my voice, we keep going. So we'll see. So enough stalling. Let's give this a try. So I'm going to do start and stop here. I have to do this from a different menu in OBS. But we're going to start the clock and we will see how long we can go in freestyle practice before I have to stop. And hey, Sponsor Man is here. Sponsor Man says, Mega Man? I'd love to be able to cover Mega Man stuff. Welcome to the stream, Sponsor Man. I don't know if you heard the entire explanation of what I was just talking about, but I'm going to be doing a freestyle practice. And so once the timer goes, I'm going to start going and we will see how long it takes before I have to stop. So feel free to kick back and vibe. So let's do it. Timer start. Switch. Drum and bass, yo. Dubstep. Hey, Oh God. Whew. Hey, it turns out when you're doing nothing but beatboxing, it gets really hot. I am sweating like a person that sweats a lot. Whew. All right. 11 minutes. 11 minutes non-stop freestyling with very few repeats. In fact, I don't think I carbon copied anything. Some of the stuff started sounding similar towards the end. Iconic says, GG, dude. Whew. That was much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So I'll make a note in my my post-stream notes that the time to beat for freestyling is 11 minutes. And next time we will see if we can beat that score. And Iconic redeemed hydrate. Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but I was chugging water like a fiend. What started getting difficult towards the end, and I don't normally have this problem. Usually it happens when I'm nervous or on a stage, but my mouth and my throat started getting dry towards the end of that. I had to start kind of swallowing in between beats of the measure breaks and then switching to some sounds that were not going to have a lot of airflow because like I was ready to start coughing and then I had to kind of suppress it. But yeah, that's really, really good endurance training. Maybe what I can do, if you folks find this interesting, maybe I can look at doing this at the end of the year. But maybe I can separate out all of these challenge sessions from the streams going forward from this one, and maybe edit into like a big mega endurance supercut, and we could see over time, hopefully the numbers improve, and whether or not I kind of recycle old beats and whatnot. Voice crack. And that might be a fun thing to have kind of capture from late 2022 up through the end of the year, endurance practice sessions. If you folks would find that interesting, maybe I can look at doing that, because I just have to edit things apart and then it's like cut stuff out and then splice it together. But, whew, all right. From there, we'll hide you. I think it's time to move on to BGM so I can sit down. So let me go grab my chair right here and fix my camera, and then we will down here. Let's work on some BGM, shall we? Iconic says, but more. Maybe after a while, when I'm doing those freestyle sessions, I'll be able to do it for like 2 hours, but not in the middle of summer. It is quite toasty. All right, let's change the caption. Change you to BGM. And make sure everything is set here. All right. So now let's crack open this file and see what we've got. So I recorded this earlier just as background noise while I was doing the intro. Oh, I just realized I had my notifications muted. Good thing there weren't any noticeable ones. Okay. Got everything cleared. So I thought a little bit about what I wanted to do for the BGM brainstorming session. And there's no real end goal in mind, but I kind of thought the idea of potentially coming up with a track for the summer BGM pack that's coming out on the 29th, coming up with an idea for that with chat could be fun, since I think the majority of the stuff, almost all of the tracks except for maybe one, you folks haven't heard before because we didn't do them on stream. But I do like the idea of potentially coming up with one that we can include that was with the help of chat. So let's see what kind of materializes. The whole point of the pack, again, it's just a fun thing for the summer that I kind of came up with. It is a quote-unquote bee-themed BGM pack. So all the tracks have some sort of sound, style, or thematic hint towards bees, because that is the theme of this channel. And you folks are the space bees. So it's all relevant. And I need to go back and double check with some of the tracks, but I think a faster paced one, which is not one I did offline, could be fun. So what we could do is set beats and experiment around things like beats and basses, and then maybe add in some synths that are going to give us some hints towards a, again, bee themed in quotes song. Whether that's, putting like a buzzing filter over the bass, or something else that's going to be kind of like a synth complement that would be akin to like a bee flying around. That could be fun. So let's try and set tempo and pace. Again, let's try and do something fast. We'll look at the BPM once we do it. But I was thinking kind of like a break beats type beat. So something that would be maybe outward K kicks, a beat that might be something like. So I think I want to record just the kicks and the snare, and then we'll add hats in after. So maybe we're thinking, I got one that sounds kind of like that. Let's see. I'll do triples. I was thinking if we were doing like a staggered kind of galloping triple beat, we'd do it really quickly. But if we did something like, that's pretty much just running up that hill, and everyone knows that song right now. I don't want to sound like I'm just trying to ride trends, so let's not do that. What if we did kind of a staggered, not drum and bass, but similar, like a something like that. Let's see if we can record a couple measures of that, and then we'll go in and add things like hats. So let's see. In fact, I'm going to move this a little away. I'm going to be eating the mic for this. Okay. That is looping cleanly. So let's see. The repeat is two measures, I think. Oh no, it's one measure. All right. Now we could try and overdub hats on top of this. The real question is, do we want something more rapid or something that's a little bit more offbeat? Because we could try and do like an eighth note run. 1 2 3 1 2 3, like eighth note triplets. That could work. Let me know if I need to drop volume on anything. I'm going to leave it about there. Let me know if you folks can't hear the actual track. I'll just try and speak a little bit louder so that the things aren't drowning each other out. So we have a single, double, single kick on the bass drum. And I was thinking maybe adding like a throat kick, but trying to do a double throat kick, like the double throat kick would be tough. That's kind of hard to do. And I could try and overdub it. That's close, actually. Might not need to add anything to the kicks. We could try and add a guitar to bass kick. I wonder what that would sound like. If I turn it on and try it, I'm not going to be able to talk. Let me see what it sounds like. And I'll try and overdub it if I like the way it sounds. Okay, it's subtle, but there is an additional bass kind of push on the kick now. And I think it lines up close enough that it sounds like it's supplementing the overall rhythm, and it doesn't obscure the way the percussion sounds. It could have been a little bit softer, but it doesn't override. It still sounds like a kick is going in the background, so I think that's what matters. We'll save our status. I need to be very careful about deleting my work. That has happened a couple times now, and it is very embarrassing. All right. Let's turn the beat back on. So I thought a little bit about one of the other songs that's on the list. Actually, one I may have shown off on stream a long time ago, but it was not recent. There is one that very, very blatantly has a bee theme to it because there's literal buzzing on it. Iconic says, "Oh yes, the most careful." Yes, I do not want to delete my progress, but we're good. We're good for now. But let's see, BPM on this one. The one I'm thinking of is a little bit more slow. It's a slower song, but the rhythm and tempo is a little similar to this. This one is 146 beats per minute. Okay, this one's fast. Hey, Waz is here. Waz says, try doing a buzz with the microphone in your mouth. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but I'm thinking about doing that on the bass. So let's think of how we want to sort of establish the bass hits, because we could do a bunch of low notes like a 1 2 3 1 1 2. That's actually similar to the other one. Maybe we did like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, something that goes up like that, using the guitar to bass, and then we go back and overdub the same notes but with a distorted bass. Like we could probably try and do one of my throat basses, so it would be like the electric bass notes, and then the same thing on top of it would be like, and then we have them on top of each other, so you have the low end and then you have the distortion on top. So I guess we need to figure out where we want it to lie, and then I'm gonna have to record it in 2 parts: the original and then an overdub with the distortion, so we can kind of noodle around with where we want it to go. Maybe just go all the way up and then down on the repeat. So it might sound like. Question is, do I want to go back down or have it go all the way up and then repeat, so it's just constantly going up at the end of every measure? Or we could even go faster. That's one thing I have not done, and I can actually demonstrate this. We could do like a repeating sequence beat. So I'll be like, and then have that repeat, and I can actually do that right now. So if we're going something like that, I just need to record it and then loop it, and it's going to do those 1 2 3 notes over and over again. That's like a 2.5 measure repeat of what I was trying to do. That might be a little bit too fast. Kind of like the idea of just a few notes going upwards, and then it repeats. And then it repeats like that. So let me go try and do that with guitar to bass, and then if it slots cleanly into the beat, then I can go and overdub the kind of distorted vibration bass on top. And that should give us a pretty distorted kind of heavy bass line. So let's see, I'm gonna turn that on. All right, make sure my mic is back on. That actually sounds pretty clean. I like the way that turned out. I upped the mic sensitivity, which is one thing I need to remember to do when I'm recording certain sounds. So it is a much heavier low end bass. Like if I were to put the fader all the way up, that would be a really large amount of low end, and that would absolutely shake a subwoofer. So that's not bad. Now if we were to add distortion on top of it, I could try and do, like I said before, just doing like the vibration bass, same notes over the top. And then if we layer them together, then it's gonna create a distorted bass. If I don't like the way it sounds, I can just take it off with the under redo. But I kind of want to see if I can get it to line up. So if we do the same note progression, it'd be. I'm gonna have to make this loud so the notes are the same duration. Okay. Now it sounds like it's in stereo, if that makes sense. There's two bass lines at the same time. Thankfully, they're not like staggered. The rhythm isn't off. Yeah, that works. All right, let's save that, since I don't want to have to do that again. I think it'd be fun to put a drop. We'll put a pin in that for now. Okay, I think that's a good bass structure for the song. That came together actually a little bit faster than I thought it would. But now we need to think about other complements to add, like a synth line, something that's higher in sound, higher pitched. And we could mess around with reverb plus pitch bend. I haven't practiced these techniques in a while, so I may actually have to go and look them up later if I don't do them right here. But let's see. Let's mess around with tracks A, or inputs A and C, and see if we can come up with something good. There it is. That's the input I was looking for. So by messing around, my voice is going to be a little lower because I have dynamics off. I'm messing around with input A. But by using pitch bend plus reverb, we can get this kind of buzzing sound. I've used this on at least one other track. But we might be able to do something interesting with this, because if I just do kicks, it's then if I talk, it sounds like that. But if I do kicks, that's how you get the buzzing noise. You drop everything down a little bit. You'll hear me echoing because of the reverb. Hey, Red Dragon redeemed a hydrate. Thanks, Red Dragon. Welcome to the stream. So using pitch bend plus the reverb to get that buzzing noise, you could literally recreate a Flight of the Bumblebee run. I don't want to do that because that would probably get me in trouble. But we could take that buzzing sound and we could put together like a different sound set that can fit in with this this beat we've got so far. The one I just did as an example, this one. Obviously it's not on rhythm. It was just to kind of show what it sounds like. Let me turn that off. So what I'm doing is I'm turning on the effect and then turning the input knob up and down, which changes the step note of that buzzing noise. It's a really interesting effect that's kind of happens as a result of the settings on pitch bend, but I'm gonna try and come up with something that works, and then we'll slot it in. So I'm not gonna be able to talk for a little bit, but we'll see if we can get it to loop. So I'll mess around with something for a little bit, and then we'll see what it sounds like. All right, let me leave that there for now. We'll kind of fiddle around with it and see. That's not a bad combination of sounds. It's interesting. We have the bass line going up, and then we have the B synth going down. And they're not in the same rhythm. You have the bass line going up by just single notes, and then the B synth is going at kind of like a staggered offbeat rhythm going downwards. But I think that's got some potential. What happens if we reverse it? Nope, that sounds terrible. That's filter. I don't know if we want to throw a filter as a transition on here. We could. I do that a lot. I want to kind of get pigeonholed into using the same techniques over and over again. That high fuzz distortion is lo-fi. It's a lo-fi preset. This is ring modulator. You know, that might not actually be terrible for like a part B version of the main song. Huh. So if we did something like a bass, like a drop transition, and then we bring in the distortion with the ring modulator for the second half, that might be interesting. So it might sound something like this. I'm trying to think of like if we were to set the distortion, because basically it kind of changes the octave because of the way it's distorting the bass line. I think it's a little too messy to use, but it is an interesting effect. If I really wanted to mess with people on when I record this, I could turn on pan, which is going to primarily affect the synth, it sounds like, because of the way it moves. But it sounds like the sound is jumping all the way around the listener. Like this sounds like, if I turn it all the way up, it sounds like the buzzing is happening on different channels in the headphones. If you're listening to this with headphones, it's the most obvious when you hear it. But it sounds like the sound is moving around the head of the listener, which could be kind of a fun effect. Panning delay makes that even more pronounced. So if you take that off of the other tracks and we just make it on the buzzing synth, actually, that doesn't sound bad. It creates a delay and it moves it around the sound channels. That actually isn't a bad default setting for this. All right, let's try and restart the song from the beginning. And I've taken the inputs off, or the track effects off of the first two, so the percussion and the bass line is not affected by this. So if we're starting, let's say with just rhythm. I kind of like the idea of the rhythm coming in first and then the synth coming in before the bass, because sometimes you do rhythm, bass, synth. Sometimes you go bass, rhythm, synth. What if we did bass, synth, rhythm? Maybe 2 repeats. And then we bring in the rhythm. I think there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to which one of the different 3 tracks we've got now is playing at any different time. I may have to brainstorm a little bit about how I want to structure it, because usually when I map out these tracks for these BGM tunes, they tend to follow kind of a logical alternating order depending on what I decide. So I don't want to follow just a similar progression like I've done before. But I am definitely a fan of keeping panning delay on the B synth. It's like 75% input. It is going to get tricky if I want to add another effect, because right now the panning delay is only affecting the synth. If I turn it on everything else, then it does that. It chops everything up because it's adding the same panning and delay to the rhythm. It's a little bit less obvious on the bass. In fact, the bass is largely unaffected by that. You can hear the bass moving around the sound channels a little, but it's the rhythm. The rhythm is the most affected by it. Yeah, you actually get a little bit of boost. I don't know what's causing that, but we could drop that fader down a little bit. Another possibility for like a part B or like a flipped around version of the main song, if we put slicer on at 75%, just like the panning delay, then it chops up the bass line and the B synth and makes it sound like it's more fragmented. That's not bad either. I like that. Yeah, 100% is a little bit too aggressive with the cutting. Yeah, in fact, I like how it changes the bass line rhythm too. The percussion is unchanged. It's not affected by any of the stuff I'm doing at the track level, but the bass line and the B synth are affected by everything I'm doing at the track level. So it makes it much more rapid when I turn on the slicer, because it's doing a 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and it's chopping it up. That's kind of neat. And it does noticeably change the rhythm of the B synth. It almost drops out a couple of the notes. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to record this when I get done streaming today. Alright. I'll have to think of how I want to transition from the first version without the choppy slicer distortion into the second part. So we're looking at two halves of the song. Let's actually think of how this will be performed. We went synth first. Let everything repeat with all tracks playing at the same time for a little bit. You could have everything drop out, go from bass line, and then bring everything back. And then we have the chopped rhythm. That could be a possibility. Iconic says, got to go now. Thanks for the sick jams. Haraku, I wish you the best. And the rest of your stream. Keep on being awesome, friendo. Thank you, Iconic. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out today. I appreciate you vibing with us. I hope the rest of your Sunday is awesome, and I will definitely catch you next time. Oh, also, name. We need a name for this thing. I am welcome to suggestions for this track. This is going to go in the BGM pack the rest. But we need a B-themed suggestion for a title. If you want to drop that as you're heading out the door, Iconic. Given this one's faster paced and it's a bit more aggressive, I kind of like the idea of like swarm, something to do with swarming, global swarming. Relevant because it is freaking hot today. Iconic says P4 and after. That's not bad. I kind of like global swarming. This came off the top of my head. It's funny because if you think of the progression, beginning sounds like there's a big angry cloud of bees in the distance. When it switches to this chopped up version, it sounds like they are actively chasing you. All right, Iconic. Thanks for the suggestion. You're good. I'll catch you later, dude. Have a good one. Okay. Let's save this before I do anything else. That one's good. I will think of how I want to actually plug it into the actual recorded version, but it's going to be very similar to what we heard here. So with that is the final track in the Summer BGM pack. There will be 5 in total. It's a mini one. It's not a full album or EP size release. It was just meant to be a fun little summer collection of silly themed stuff around bees. I honestly don't know if people want to listen to 12 tracks of bee-related songs. That might be a bit much, but I will get that one added and then work on getting everything ready to upload, and it should be out by Friday, or I'm going to look really silly putting an announcement not adhering to the release date. So everything should be up on Bandcamp by Friday. There'll also be a YouTube video highlighting all of the tracks if you want to listen to them before you go and download them off of Bandcamp. So we can look forward to that coming out soon. All right. Let us move on to another track, and I think we have time for another one. Let me save this. Go 31. clear all this stuff off. Another thing that I was thinking about as I was trying to figure out what to do for today's jam stream was starting to come up with some ideas for Halloween. I know it seems like it's a long ways away, but in reality, we're almost at the end of July. We have August, September, October. Halloween, aka best holiday, is not that far away. And so I do want to sort of start brainstorming some ideas for potential tracks that are going to go in the Halloween pack this year. And I don't have any that are done and ready to go that I can think of. In fact, I may need to go and scrub through the list of things I've got saved on this loop station just to see if I parked anything for potential use later. I might have. But we do need to come up with some ideas for spoopy Halloween tunes. And that one is going to be like a full-size release, so I do need to get started on it sooner than later. But kind of similar in style to last year's Revenant's Beats release. I like the idea of kind of ambient, brooding, kind of dark sounding songs. They don't necessarily have to be slow. A lot of them ended up being slow. But since we're here brainstorming BGM ideas, I might mess around with some stuff, and if we have some possibilities that I can use for the Halloween pack, that would be good. So let's see. Let's think of rhythms. I really want to do something with a waltz theme. It's just very difficult to sort of arrange and come up with something that sounds good. But we could try it with a 3/4 waltz tempo. 1 2 3 1 2 3. The question is, I think I tried this with a PF snare before. It turned out okay, but everything else that needs to be built around it is kind of tricky. So let's see. Let's see if we can record one, and then we'll play around with it and see if it sounds good enough to work with for rhythm purposes. So we could do something like, as the bass kicks, PF snares, and then we can add hats in as an additional overdub, since it's difficult to fit that in just doing the beat by itself with my mouth. So let's see. This is going to be a bit slower. So if we recorded it, it might be something like, okay, that's one measure, so we only need one really. Or we could do two. I'm going to need to loop it a little more cleanly. Oh, first kick kind of drowned out there. That's weird. There we go. The slightly longer elongated snare on the second half, the second measure. That's probably not a big deal. It'll sound like it's alternating. So for hats, we could follow the same tempo and layer it on overdub, something like, that's what I was thinking for hats. We can turn a bit of reverb on, try to get this a little bit further back. Interesting. You can't hear the closed hats because they're being drowned out by the other parts of the rhythm. They're in there. Maybe I can try and make it a little more pronounced. Let's see. There we go. Okay. We'll leave that about there. Okay, that's functional. That it's a lot more functional than the last time I tried to do this. Maybe I'm actually getting better at using this instrument. Now, for complement bass lines or something like that, I kind of want to do something that sounds similar to Haunt You, or a similar instrument style to Haunt You from last year, which used, I think it was chorus. I think it was, might have been chorus and another instrument layered to create that kind of like wailing, ghostly noise. That's what I'm kind of going for, but I need to figure out which instrument preset does that. Let's see, is it on C? Chorus. There's chorus. So freeword, it is actually kind of hard to hear the effect. Oh, there we go. So I think the way I did it for, let me turn that off. I think the way I did it for Haunt You was I did like a sung note, just like a, and I did multi, like harmonized layers, so it sounds like a bunch of voices at once. So if we just take the and turn it on what it sounds like. Yep, that is definitely the effect. So let's see. We could do something like going high to low to high, like a in 3/4, the same tempo as the rhythm. So we turn it on. Something like, and then not a prolonged part going off. It would be, or we could do a lower step version of those three notes too, like. We do have options. Let's try and record something with the actual effect on and see what it sounds like. All right, I might have to turn the effect down a little bit because it's really warbly and distorted. We definitely don't want that, otherwise it's going to be really hard to pick out actual melodies if we put kind of a layered, harmonized thing in place. So if we go 50%. Of course, I need to record it kind of on time, not staggered by like a half beat. We could also do I tried to do this before and it didn't turn out well. But I think it was a melody. No, it wasn't using this effect either, but we could try and go for a melody that goes up and it follows the same rhythm as the percussion. Like that's what I tried to do before, but I couldn't get it to accurately layer. But if we try and do that with the ghost chorus effect on, that might actually synergize with the rhythm a little bit better. Let me see. And then it repeats. I think I don't want it to be sharp. I think I want it to sound more like the voices are singing and not like doot 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 with like a hard D. So instead I might go like kind of soften the first part of each note so it's not like a sting. Let's see if we can get that. The note wise, I think that's where I want it. Let's see if we can get it to work. Well, that's an interesting effect. I don't think it sounds very good. The high note on there. I wonder if I can just take that off. So rhythm-wise and note-wise, I think it's synced up fine. It's obviously missing low end, which we could probably do just on a completely separate track using guitar to bass and have it be an octave down lower version of that. In fact, let's do that. What I'll do is I'll record that on the third track, and then we'll play it all together and see how it lines up. Well, that syncs up. It's an octave down version. I think it's harmonizing fine. It's a little bit difficult for me to pick the combination notes out because of the distortion on the higher one. But I think even if we decide to drop the higher version, I think the low version of the bass can actually be functional no matter what. I think I want to keep the bass line here, and I think I want to change the ghost synth. Instead of it being the same note progression as the bass line, I kind of want to revisit the idea of going high to low to high to low, but I don't know if it's gonna sync up rhythm-wise. I'm gonna mess around with some different versions using the preset, so I won't be able to talk for a second while I mess around with this. Actually, I'm gonna tweak some of the settings with chorus since I haven't really messed around with it too much. Let me see if I can change the way that sound or the effect sort of hits when I'm singing into it. Interesting. There's a lot of different individual settings within the chorus instrument or effect, but I can't tell just by ear what they're doing. Part of it sort of determines and affects how the sound resonates, and I think it's also affecting the harmonizing part that the chorus is adding. So if I'm adding like a there's a step that's being added like underneath it or above it, and that I cannot hear just by ear. Interesting. So I think that the level of preset, this is with chorus at 100% with the input knob. So I turn the effect, not the settings, the effect all the way up. This is what it sounds like. And I think for kind of like a ghostly type of melody, that's fine. Now, whether or not I want to stick with this 3-note thing, I just stuck that in there just to see what it sounds like when layered against everything else. This one's tough. This is definitely not a style of music that I'm too used to creating. But so far the rhythm and the bass line I think are the most functional. I don't know what I want to do with the sung chorus, the ghost chorus as it were. Another thing that I think I did this identically on Haunt You was just have the note fall. So it would start at one high note and then just go, and then I think I harmonized that a couple times. I don't necessarily want to do the exact same thing again because it's just going to sound like the same song with a different rhythm. But let's mess around with what it sounds like in practice. And then just see. This is all kind of an experiment in brainstorming, coming up with ideas to potentially use for the Halloween pack. So let's see, I'm gonna turn that on. I'm just gonna mess around and we'll see how it sounds when compared with the rhythm and the bass line. I had it on one shot, so it recorded weird. Yeah, it's off slightly because of the one shot. I don't know if anything I said was even audible. We had to turn. I turned one shot off, and I think it messed up the timing on where the sort of sound falls. So I have to redo it. You know, that might be one of the most standard types of effect noises and sounds for like quote unquote spooky track. But it doesn't sound terrible. I don't dislike it. What I did was I went and I layered several different kind of octave or harmonized versions of the wailing noise, all descending just on a curve. Where is Haunt You? I should just pull that up. Let's save this. Let me dig into my BGM archive and compare. Okay. Should be audible. Hopefully not too loud. The style and tempo of the song is very different from the one we're working on right now, but the ghost part I want to listen to. I think the duration on the recorded one that I just did, that's what I'm playing now, I think it's longer. It's not the same duration. It's close, but very similar. What if we reverse it? That's interesting. Sounds like the ghosts are doing a cheer at a sporting event. It's similar. I think it might be too similar to Haunt You. But I really like the layering of notes on this version of the Ghost Wails as opposed to the older version from the last year's song. If I could take that note progression and stick it into that song, I think it would sound better. All right. I need to think on this one. It's definitely got potential and kind of a framework, if you will, for something spooky. And hey, first time chat from Kagashima Ruriri. Hopefully I said your name right. That's a difficult combination of syllables. Kagashima Ruriri says, dude, if I heard that in my house, I would pack up and move out. Well, working as intended. Welcome to the stream, the Beatbox Jam stream, first and foremost. What we are doing here is experimenting with ideas for a potential Halloween BGM pack to be released this fall. And so, if it sounds spoopy, then it is doing its job. And to give a little background, I am a beatboxer, and I'm using an RC505 loop station to record these tracks. When we do these Beatbox Jam sessions, kind of collaboratively with chat, I take ideas and suggestions from chat to put together into BGM tracks that I release in the future as free, royalty-free assets and things people can use for their content. So for streamers, YouTubers, video makers, if they want to use my BGM tracks, then they can download the stuff for free. And basically, I'm creating these with the help of chat. I know it's early, but I do need to start plugging away at ideas for a a Halloween BGM pack, hence the spoopy ghost noises. And I really wanted to try and combine the themes with a waltz, because I've never done a waltz type sound. So that's why we have the 3/4 waltz type beat. But I've been kind of wrestling around with the bass line, and then what you just heard was the melody, I guess we can call it, with the ghost voices. So these two components I'm happy with. The bass line is fine, but I think it kind of clashes a little bit with the ghost wails. So I don't know which I'm gonna keep. Because we could also do something like sustained notes instead of the same 3/4 rhythm as the percussion. But I don't know if I like that better. It's tough. This is a really unusual type of song that I'm not used to working on. I'm used to things being a little more straightforward. Like if we were to stop this, save, and look at the one that we were creating earlier in the stream. Entirely different style of song. Hopefully this isn't too loud. But this one was a different track we were working on for a pack I'm trying to release at the end of next week. And it sounds like... different style, a faster, kind of more up-tempo-ish song with a bee-like synth in the background. This one is called Global Swarming. But I'm used to doing stuff that's a little more straightforward like this. Trying to do like a spooky waltz is a little out of my wheelhouse, but we have to do it. So that's why we're looking at that for Halloween. Let me jump back to the previous one. Kagashima Ruriri says, I got an idea. I don't know if it will help. You know how Charlie Puth came up with the light switch? You could use that method and come up with new noises to add and stuff. If we're talking about additional ambient noises, that's true. There's a lot of different options we have with this particular instrument. I flip back to the track we were working on before. One thing that's handy about this particular instrument is it's extremely powerful. I've only been using it for about a year and a half or so, but we can take any sort of input and we can change a lot of what comes out just by messing with the input effects that change the sound when they're recorded. So like, let's say I wanted to do kind of like a clattering noise with an echo. I just have to put on delay. And I could turn reverb on at the same time to give it an echo, but if I turn this on, we might get something like, and we have an echoing, delayed, clicking type noise. Turn that off. That's just a real quick example. Rudy says you can just call me Rudy as my nickname. That makes it easier. So yeah, part of the challenge is, one, like you said, coming up with different ambient noises and things to kind of combine with the overall track, and, you know, percussion, rhythm line, bass line, melody / synth line, and then etc. The loop station has 5 different tracks that can be looping at once, and you can overdub things on each individual track. So there's really a lot of flexibility about how much you can put into the actual song, as it were. But maybe it'd be easier if I kind of show an example, since I'm in this folder now. One from last year's Halloween pack. This one, play it, make sure it's not too loud. This one is called Always Behind You. Let me turn this down in my headphones. There you go. And this one combines a couple different effects, namely like a lo-fi distortion on the bass and kind of an echoing reverb and delay on that kind of wind rustling noise. And so this is kind of the effect we're going for with these tracks, trying to create kind of an atmospheric and an ominous vibe. Again, Halloween, aka best holiday, and make sure all the different elements mesh. And this waltz one is tricky. I may have to put a pin in this one and work on it a little bit more later, because I do like the bass rhythm. And I do like the weird ghost wails, but I feel like we need to kind of bridge the gap in the middle. Coming up with additional things is really more of experimentation. Rudy says it's pretty good. Oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate it. That Halloween pack was super fun to work on. If you want to listen to the tracks in full, I'm not to plug my own work, but if you go to my YouTube, there's a compilation video for all of the music I've released so far that has all the songs edited together to listen to. And then if you want to actually download them and use them for your own content, you can do that via Bandcamp, which is also linked here and on YouTube. And you could just go to the page and it'll ask you for a monetary amount. Just put $0 in there and it'll let you download them for free. I wonder if putting that kind of similar sort of like wind or rustling effect over the top would be too much of a clash with the sort of waltz tempo, because I want that to be at the forefront. Let's try another bass line. What do I have on track 2? Oh, that. I don't need that. I'm going to try and record another bass line. It's going to be different from the 3/4 one that I have saved on here already. And it's going to be sustained notes. So I'm going to try and do like 1 or 2 notes in a long string instead of one that moves. And I want to see if that kind of meshes better with the tempo, and then we'll add in the ghost wails. I still have that saved. It's on a different track. So let's see. I realize I have my mic sensitivity up a little bit too much. Let's try just guitar to bass. It's like an electric bass type of instrument. All right, I'm gonna turn my mic back on. Now what happens if we add in the ghost noises? Interesting. The problem I'm running into now is the bass line and the rhythm of the ghost noises, because they weren't recorded at the same time, are a little bit out of sync. Yeah, that's interesting. So we could try and re-record the ghost noises, because I actually like this bass line better than the other one. Let's see. Rudy says, do you have an example of what you can imagine the end product sound to be for this? Bro, I need to look up what waltz is. If you look up just look up like a standard waltz, it'll give you this same tempo. So I'm not a music major and music theory notation person, but the time signature for this is 3/4. Let me drop this down a little bit. Actually, I'll just turn it off. So waltz tempo is usually 3/4. So 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 3/4. And so I want to structure this whole thing to be like a kind of weird, spooky sounding waltz. But as far as the end product, we're sort of just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Now I actually like the combination of the main rhythm and the bass line. The problem is the weird ghost noises we were working on earlier were more in line with the previous bass line, because that's what I was recording them against. I was using that same rhythm. So like if we just take the percussion. Two, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we turn on the bass. Should we start and stop at the same time? We have the bass that goes through several measures. It goes up, comes down like a half step, and then stops for a chunk of the measure, and then starts up with the rhythm again. So there's a gap. I intentionally left that gap in there to let the rhythm just sort of stand on its own for a bit, and then it comes back in, right? So now the question is, if we were to take this combination of things, and I'm going to delete the other original bass line because I like this better. We'll stop. Exit. Save our work. We could make the ghost noises on demand so I can play them whenever I want. One feature of the loop station, in addition to continuously looping tracks that are playing just over and over again, you can also assign one of the tracks to be like a drum machine where you push a button and it plays the sample and then it just cuts off. So it plays it one time, it doesn't loop it continuously. If we did that for the ghosts, we could play them whenever. So if I turn it into a one shot, now it sounds like it has a whole duration. But if I were to hit the button again, it's like a drum machine input, right? And it just plays the same thing over and over. So I could do. So by doing that, I basically have this sound and it should play whenever I hit the button. Let's try it. Yep. Well, that's one way to work on having basically the timing be whatever I want when I record this. That effect I'm messing around with is called transpose, which allows us to pitch up or pitch down something by set octaves. Unfortunately for bass, because there's a lot of warbling distortion on the bass itself, it doesn't do it cleanly. If I was just singing the note, then I could basically change the octave on the fly by moving the knob. But because there's a lot of reverberation, trying to transpose the bass line up, it makes it equally garbled, which is unfortunate. But I was kind of curious to see if I could just jump up the bass line and make it higher just on the fly. Let's see. Urori says, what would it sound like if you have that ghost sound with, a very deep sound? Well, we could test that with the transpose, actually. And we could pitch it down, but it might work. Let's see. Let's turn it off on here. So, okay, so a couple things. If we're applying the low transpose to just the ghost sounds and not adding like a lower sound on top of it, we're just distorting and pitching down the ghost sound, it sounds like this. In fact, let me isolate it here. And that sounds terrifying. Sounds like a demon growling at you. That's at 25%, pitching it downwards. Hello, Satan. If you do it at 50%, it'll be less aggressive. This is 40%. Now, what we could also do, recording would be tricky, so I might put it on a completely different track. We could try and record the same progression of the ghost noise on a different track and just go low. Go, like, really low. But, yeah, if we're applying the distortion and transpose to just the sound by itself, that's how you get the Satan noise. And it's a little bit staticky. I don't know why it's doing that. Conversely, if we go up, this is the opposite direction. Now they're really high pitched. And I don't know if that's better or worse. This is your mom when she steps on a Lego. 75% is a little bit more in the middle. But you go 100%, that is very high. And I can actually do it on the fly too. It doesn't have to be set. If I just mess with the input knob. It sounds like that distortion noise you hear on TikTok every once in a while. People put on their voices. We could try to Rudy's point about the low sound. We could try and record the ghost noise on just a different track and see what it sounds like, but go low. Where's chorus? Problem is, for that effect, if you're going really low, it's just gonna kind of rumble. Like if I were to turn it on. Actually doesn't rumble that much. It just sounds like a really deep voice, kind of like ghost noise. What I've done is I put the low ghost voice, as it were, on its own track, and it's looping. It's not one shot, but that's what it sounds like. Hey, Med's back. Med is hitting us with another hydrate reminder. Will do. Welcome back, Med. We are working on a spooky waltz, and it is yielding some rather interesting results. This one's gonna probably take some fine tuning, I think. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with it yet. I do know that I want to keep the rhythm and the bass line. The one shot noise is the ghost voices, and I just have that on demand because it was easier to do that than to try and resync it. Hey, Funkhauser's back. What's up, Funkhauser? Funk says, long time no see, Raku. How's this going? It's going places. Again, we are working on ideas for the upcoming Halloween BGM pack in the fall, and with the ideas centered around a spoopy waltz, we have created something very unusual and weird. So you joined some bizarreness here, but I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you. Hopefully this isn't too loud. I need to keep an eye on where things are coming out on OBS. Make sure I'm not blowing out your speakers. But it's interesting. We have on demand, we have the high kind of ghost noises, and we have this looping low one. I just recorded this a couple minutes ago just to kind of see what it sounds like. It's not bad. And the low one is synced up with the rest of the tracks, but the high ones, because it's on demand on a one-shot button, is just whenever I hit the button. I don't know. I'm going to save my work here, and I will think about this one more in the future and kind of kick around some more ideas about what I want to do with that one. I think the structure, again, so I was saying earlier, the skeleton is there, but need some fine tuning to figure out what we're going to do with that weird waltz. But I guess what we can do before we wrap up, maybe we could do one more, and maybe we'll try and not go quite so complicated. Let me save on a new track here. We'll clear all this off. Turn this back to a regular loop. And save the blank slot. And this doesn't have to be necessarily a Halloween theme one. I just wanted to get the ball rolling and get some ideas together, since October will be here before I know it. If I put things off too long, then I won't be able to finish the pack in time for the holiday. But let's sort of switch gears to something a little more straightforward. What if we try and put together a BGM track that's a bit more hip hop inspired? That'll be kind of a fresh genre and style to work on. So what we need to do is establish a bass rhythm with our percussion, and then we'll loop that and then figure out what else we can add to bass line, synths, and everything else. And this will be a lot more straightforward than trying to create something spooky. So let's see. I'm thinking kind of a maybe mid-tempo beat. I'm willing to go fast. Maybe something like something like that. Let me get that captured, and then we'll start tinkering around with things to add to it. Of course, I might need to shorten the measure down so it loops cleanly. So let me try that again. Half second. There we go. I'm going to leave the volume about there so it's not too loud for you folks. Now we need to add, I want to add a hi-hat run. Maybe we do eighth notes on top of the beat with overdub. So something like, but not too loud, and back off a little bit from the mic. And of course I'm going to stutter. Oh, whoops. I didn't mean to delete the whole thing. Okay. I kind of stuttered a little bit and it screwed the whole rhythm up, but I deleted the track, so I'm going to do it over again. a little bit tighter in. Still sounds like it's a millisecond off. There we go. And Red Dragon has redeemed Small Raku. Oh, all right. Let me go over here. Stand right in front of the mic. And timer on. All right, let me try and get that hi-hat recorded accurately this time. It's off slightly. Doesn't need to be an eighth note run either. Quarter notes? That might work better. It's definitely off tempo. Could go off beat. I think I like that better. All right, we'll leave that for now. Now, bass line. What are we thinking for bass lines? I could do guitar to bass, or I could try and go for a sung bass instead, just kind of switch things up. I was thinking maybe doing like a vocalized chest, like a let's see if we can get that to work. Trying to listen and see if it's slightly off. It almost sounds like it's off by like a quarter beat. Maybe not. You could add a guitar to bass low end underneath that, same notes, but give it a lot more like a heavy like subwoofer shaking sound. Let's see if we can do that. Okay, subtle. It's not gonna completely overpower the vocalized chest bass, but it does give it give it more low end. If you're listening to this really loud, this would definitely shake your subwoofer. That's interesting. By using the transpose command, I can actually manipulate the bass line notes a little bit easier because it's not quite as heavily distorted. And there's the timer. What if we tried doing beat scatter? If we try to apply beat scatter to just the percussion, leave the bass unaffected. That's interesting. I'm trying the other patterns under the beat scatter preset. Pattern 3 at 100% is not bad. Drop the balance down a little. Bass kind of dominates the balance of the mix. Okay. So if you think about other potential tracks or loop complements to add to this one, try and add synth. That's one that I keep struggling to get to work properly. That's regular synth. Rudy says, I don't understand what you're saying, but you sound cool saying it. Thanks. I understand this is kind of technical talk when I'm referring to what's on my loop station here, but that's okay. I wouldn't worry too much about it. All you need to know is that all of the inputs and stuff I'm using to capture, I'm trying to play around with and add different commands in order to flesh out and add different instrument sounds like we saw in the previous ones. So yeah, don't worry too much about it. I'm not an expert on this instrument. I'm still actively learning, but it's really fun to use. It's very powerful. Let's see. Let's see. Where is synth? Is that on C? Oh no, of course not. It's probably on B or A. Oh, I got an idea. It's not going to be a synth per se. Let me turn this off so I can isolate the sound. Another thing I thought about putting on would be a lip roll. And for people who might not know as much about beatbox terminology, well, there you go. That's a pretty good example. Thank you for following Kagashima Ruriri. That noise that you heard on my follow alert is the lip roll, and I was thinking about adding that to the mix to see what it sounds like, and that sounds like that is an inward sound in beatboxing, and I was thinking about adding it to the mix just to see what it sounded like, but I was trying to think of the rhythm. I don't want it to loop just like maybe something like if I can get it to come out cleanly. Let's try and add it, see what happens. It's close. The problem is there's 3 of them, but they're not all, I didn't do them all consistently, so a couple of them sound a little bit louder than the others. It kind of drowns out. I think the bass overpowers the lip roll, so it's sort of getting muddy in the background and you can't really hear it. Oh, let's see. Where is that synth command? There it is. Now if I turn this on, this one is triggered by specific input. Yep. But I'm gonna have to play around with that one. For some reason, I have it set to some weird setting. Let me change my mic settings and I'll explain what I'm trying to do with that. There, turn that back on. So the synth input on this thing, it basically creates a noise, but it does it when you're putting sounds into the mic. And for some reason, just doing like a spoken word or voice into it doesn't trigger it, and it used to. So I must have changed the settings somewhere. So I was kind of thinking about doing like a something like that, but the instrument's not working, so I can't do that. Let's try one more. This is going to be a combination of granular delay and filter, I believe. I'm gonna have to turn off my mic boost, so I'm not gonna be able to talk for a few seconds while I try and do this, but if I can get it to record, we might be able to layer something in here. Alright, get my mic back on here. So that kind of mechanical, I don't know what you call that, almost like a clicking noise, was done by combining 2 different instrument effects and then kind of playing with the input on the fly to get the different pitches. They're very slightly different pitches, but then I just recorded that in one shot, so that's why it's looping now. It sounds kind of interesting. I think it's at odds with the bass, though. I might have to change the bass line. Rudy says you added alien sounds? Pretty much. by combining the high pass filter with the granular delay, it creates this kind of like, yeah, like an alien buzzing or clicking noise. It's kind of fun. If we work in something like beat repeat, which is taking a section of the different looping tracks that are all going right now, and it's looping just one snipped section over and over again, this is how we kind of create drops in other types of styles of music. Or if we just want to switch up the rhythm, I'm gonna have the bass taken out because the bass is a little bit off from the synth I just added. By doing this, we're basically adding a halftime, like a halftime variation on the rhythm. Maybe just turn it off. Interesting combination of sounds. I think it has potential. Real quick, I'm going to go refill my water bottle before we start to wrap up for the day. But I'm going to let this loop. I'm going to take the bass out. I'm just going to mute my mic real quick. I'll be back in 1 second, folks. All right. Sorry about that. I go through a lot of water on these streams. It is hot. It is hot today. Let's try something here. Save this. I am going to re-record the bass. I'm going to take the vocalized chest, I'm going to take it off for now and go strictly with guitar to bass for the electric bass sound, and I'm going to change the melody. I want to actually go for ascending, and I'm going to keep the alien synth on, and try and line it up so it kind of meshes better. And I see Rudy's hit me with 5 hydrates. Boy, you must really want me to drink water. Very well. That's why I refilled my bottle. It's important to keep hydrated when doing beatboxing or anything in the summer. All right, so let me clear this. The note I was thinking about doing for the bass would be something like instead of the one I had before. So let's see if we can get that to record. All right, let's put the mic back on. So now we have a different bass, and I made this one heavier. If I were to turn the fader all the way up on this track, that would be very loud in the subwoofer. But I think it meshes a little bit better with the alien synth now. Now, if we try and do the drop effect of beat repeat like we talked about before, much easier to do a drop now. What I'm doing is I'm kind of playing around with how I'd want this thing to actually be performed and recorded. But yeah, we're definitely going for heavier bass now. I think that's fitting for this type of song. Can also add in some filter effects. You want everything to sort of cut out and get muted for a sec. Go gradual with it. Bring it back. Could add some lo-fi distortion if you wanted to fuzz it out a bit. I think the bass makes it a little bit too distorted though. Let me save this first. For those that are new to the jam streams, last couple I've mistakenly deleted my work by accident, and I really want to avoid doing that, which is Also why there's a save reminder redeem on there. Because that's embarrassing. This is what it sounds like if we reverse the bass line. That's actually not bad. I got an idea. All right, from the top. What I'm doing here is I'm playing the different tracks in different orders, like this was actually being performed or recorded, because eventually I'm gonna have to record this and put it into an actual organized format. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with the synth, bring in the beat, cut it out, bring in both, go for transition. This would be tricky. I was thinking of having the bass line reverse after I come out of the filter. Problem is, it's applying the filter to the track while it's playing. So I can't just, click it at once because it's the same button. But the thing is, I kind of really like the reverse bass too. It's different. It has kind of a scratch on the end of it. I don't know what's causing that. It could be how it's looping. That's probably what's causing that. All right, I got another idea. Go for the transition. We cut the bass line out completely by just dropping the volume of the track. Then that allows me to go in and click the reverse, because again, I can't do it instantly with a button. But we basically have an empty section after the filter transition, but there's no bass. Then I go in and I switch it, and then when it comes back in, it's the reverse version. And we could jump back and forth and switch it as we need to. Rudy says, I'll spam save at the end then. Don't worry about it, dude. I'll make sure and save once we get through messing with all this stuff. Basically, what we have is a bunch of different options for the song progression. We can have the beat, the bass line, and the synth running all the way up through like one half of the song. Then we go into that filter transition where everything kind of drops out and gets muted. Then we come back with no bass line, and then we let it run for a couple bars while I switch it, and then it comes back in reversed. So basically, we have one half regular bass line, second half reversed, and it's kind of like it flips mid song. And I'm not necessarily married to the idea of doing a drop. You don't really do drops in hip hop music, but you could. So if we just did version 1, filter transition, version 2 with the reverse bass, then that could be the whole track. And I think that's definitely a possibility. For something so simple, again, this is just 3 tracks. It's not really that complicated of a song. We could definitely do something like that. I guess the only question left before we get ready to wrap up is, what do we want to call this thing? I usually solicit ideas from chat for titles of these BGM tracks. That way, when they eventually get released, you can see the names that we came up with collectively. So I'm open to suggestions for what to call this one. It's kind of again, hip hop adjacent type beat with some fun things on the bass line. So feel free to drop your suggestions in the chat about what we want to call this thing. I'll turn it back on in the meantime while we're figuring that out. Maybe a title that has something to do with the bass specifically, since I think that's kind of the part that stands out the most on the song. Worth noting that in the library of BGM tracks, there's already one called Second Bass, bass spelled B-A-S-S. So we definitely want to make sure we don't just do that again. Kind of like the idea of low reverse. Low being a reference to the low end bass track, and a verse being the fact that we're flipping the melody on the bass line around. Well, I'm going to placeholder that as a potential title for this track. You got an idea, Rudy? Feel free to drop your idea. I don't know if I really want to mess around with having it repeat mid-rhythm like that. Rudy says the track of Raku the Great. Oh, come on now. I'm not that big of a narcissist. I could put my name on a track. That would just be silly. What I was doing while I was sort of running through and we're talking about this is I was just kind of rehearsing how the song would actually be structured, and I think I got it now. We'll see if I can remember this next time I actually go in to record stuff. But I think for now, unless I come up with something more fitting, I'm gonna go with low reverse. I think that'll do. It's kind of a fun track. I'm surprised it came together that quickly. But I think that will do it for today's Beatbox Jam stream. Today was productive. We talked a little bit at the beginning about beatbox technique and theory. We did sort of a sound check on status update on the sounds I'm working on and training. We tested out a new challenge format, which was pretty interesting, where I have to freestyle for as long as humanly possible on a timer. And I believe our record to beat for the next one is 11 minutes straight with no breaks. Rudy says that the track of Beatbox or Raku the Amazingly Amazing. I think that might be flying too close to the sun, dude. They put that on a official release. And of course save. Yes, I did save. I'll do one last check because I tweaked a couple things. Track is saved. But in addition to doing a challenge with freestyling, we spent a good couple hours working on BGM tracks. We have a new one for the upcoming pack coming out next week. Some ideas and skeleton for a potential spoopy waltz that I need to work on some more. And then we have this one. Overall, pretty productive. Let's see, before we completely sign off for the day, let me go see if any one of the homies are online to raid. We'll go over and see if there's anyone we can visit. Bean Bun is currently online. The homie is playing Final Fantasy XIV online. That is kind of his thing. Okay. Well, we will go ahead and pause this. Before we go to outro, once again, thanks to all the folks who stopped by and hung out today. Hopefully these jam sessions or jam streams are interesting and at least good background music. I need to figure out next week's stream schedule, but that will get posted on Twitter. If you ever want to keep track of when I'm streaming here on Twitch, you can find that on my Twitter and links to all the other stuff we talked about, like the YouTube archives, Bandcamp for the music, all that stuff. But let me go to outro. And let's go raid the Bean Bun Master of FF14. So thanks again for hanging out, folks, and I will catch you in the next stream. Have yourselves a good evening.